Hi everybody, I'm Charlie, and welcome back to On Air, my Beatles collection. Well, today I have just a little short video, because today I received the new Fab, Free as a Bird, Real Love single. And here that is. Just showing you this side first. I've already put it in a protective outer sleeve. I've already transferred the hype sticker to that outer sleeve. So I'll show you the hype sticker. And of course, made in Czech Republic, so I put that on there too. I'll read that sticker for you in a minute, but anyway, here is the record. Now this is a hardcover. If you bought the Beatles singles collection in the blue box in 2019, you got a single just like this in there, double-sided, so it's Free as a Bird and Real Love, and they did this exact same thing. Of course, that was not the 2025 mix because that was 2019. So this is the 25 mix, sorry. Also, that was black vinyl, and this is not. They're calling this milk, clear milk, but doesn't look like clear milk to me. Just looks like clear. It's a paper sleeve. It's no poly liner. That's not the best thing. And then here is the record. It actually looks milkier on the camera than it does in person. In person, it looks clear. For those of you who have followed some of my other videos and have heard some of my rants, this has the same crappy Apple label that you can't read the bottom right-hand corner of. It's the shading on the Apple is the same color as the ink on the print, so you basically cannot read what it says. You can, of course, read the other side. So you can see it says Real Love 2025 mix. Let me go back to the hype sticker because I told you I would read that. So it says Free as a Bird and Real Love 2025 mixes by Jeff Lynne, limited edition milk white vinyl from the Anthology collection. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff about the copyright, which is all this stuff here. And then, of course, the barcode at the bottom. So, what can we say about it other than I hate the Granny Smith side of the unsliced apple. The sliced side looks fine, but I don't know why. I don't know how the decision was made that they were going to use that kind of style on the label. It's just, to me, it's ridiculous. You can't read anything. It's the same color as the ink, and it's just too dark and you can't read. So you can't even see Free as a Bird. You can see, well, you can see Free as a something, and then it kind of looks like there's some print in parentheses that probably says 2025 mix, but you wouldn't know it by looking at it. It does say 2025 in small print up here and also on the other side. So I'm going to put this in the box, the singles collection box from 2019, right behind the one that just looks like it, which would be right in front of Now and Then, which I added to that box when Now and Then came out. So what can we say about this? I've mentioned earlier my thoughts about the 2025 mix of Free as a Bird. I got used to the 1995 mix. I think what I missed the most is when I first heard that song, knowing that John had passed 15 years before that. I had this in my mind. I had the feeling that he was singing from the other world, from wherever he is now, wherever that place is. It had that, that sound that was kind of mysterious and kind of, it was very John, by the way, in my opinion, to make his voice sound that way. because John loved playing with the sound of his voice. He loved echo, he loved double tracking, he loved reverb, he loved all those kind of things, even flanging, and even reverse, tape loops for his own voice, not just for music. So I kind of got used to that. I think a lot of people got used to that. And then this version, musically, it basically sounds the same, but John's voice is much clearer. Therefore, there was no need to do all that, that stuff to it to make it sound otherworldly. But now it sounds kind of too clean to me, too dry, as they say in recording, meaning it doesn't seem to have any reverb or any effect on the voice whatsoever. Keeping in mind that the source was John singing into a small tape recorder on top of his piano with noises in the background and whatnot. So, he wasn't really taking it seriously. He was trying to record something that would serve as a demo for future reference. I don't think it was for future reference of Paul, George, and Ringo, at least not at the time. I don't think that was his intention. But it was probably his intention to record it properly at a later point. So he didn't put a lot of effort into the vocal. And so now you kind of get the dry 2025 version. It sounds fine. If it was the only thing we ever heard, we'd say, oh my goodness, John's now been gone longer than he was on Earth. And it'd be just great to hear his voice. But having heard his voice 30 years ago, and it's hard to believe itself that the original was 30 years ago. But, to think that maybe we had to wait, how long? 45 years to hear his voice. We would maybe appreciate this more. I would appreciate it more. But I kind of got so used to the sound of his voice on Free as a Bird, sorry. I just, I'm having trouble adjusting to the sound of his voice. Now, Real Love, on the other side, the other A side, of course, is also the 2025 mix. And everybody seems to have complaints about that. I don't have the same complaints. Now, just to talk about John's voice for a minute, on the original, it sounded a little bit chipmunky to me, like the Chipmunks. They had to speed up and slow his voice down because it wasn't done all in the same time. So John had a tendency to wiggle up and down the speed curve. They had to normalize it to a specific click track, a specific speed, and some of it sounded a little mousy, a little chipmunky. And that bothered me, back in 95. That bothered me quite a bit, actually, originally, when I first heard it. But, I think we all got used to it. And then, again, we thought, well, John liked to goof around with his voice. He probably would have been fine with it the way it was. And, I like the song. I like the song a lot, actually. I was familiar with it from the movie Imagine and from bootlegs that I had where there was different versions of what became Real Love. It was Real Life at one point, with a different theme and different lyrics. But, it was the same melody. And so, I had heard John sing that melody and different words and some of the same words many times on bootlegs and on the Imagine soundtrack album. I'm talking about the Imagine movie soundtrack album, not the Imagine video album. Anyway, I kind of got used to it over time, and now we get the 2025 version, and I think the vocal is actually improved on the 2025 version because it doesn't have that effect. Now they can speed correct without changing the pitch, and so it sounds normal throughout. It's a little dry, not as dry as Free as a Bird, but it's a little bit dry. But it sounds good, it sounds natural, and again, if this was the first time we were hearing it, we'd be thinking, oh wow, what a great job they did on this. Similar to Now and Then. Most people had not heard a lot about Now and Then. Again, I have a lot of bootlegs. I have, various sources where I heard Now and Then in many forms. And then, of course, there was a lot of folks on the internet, particularly here on YouTube, that did their own mixing and did some great jobs with Real Love over the years. So, we've all heard that and Now and Then a million times. I mean, before either one was released officially on this 2025 mix. So, anyway, I'm comfortable with the vocals on Real Love much more than I am on the Fab side of this record. The biggest complaint that I've heard about the 2025 mix is about George's guitar. There was a 2015 mix that was done for the One Plus video DVD/CD set that came out in 2015, and that was a new mix of Real Love there, and a lot of people preferred that mix. A lot of people also didn't hear it because it wasn't really released as a single, and a lot of people didn't buy the One Plus product. They already had one, and they didn't realize that there was a remix going on in there. But anyway, in the 2025 mix, there are guitar parts that were removed, some of George's guitar parts, and there's also other complaints that people have had about the sound in general. I like it. I like the background vocals in it. I like everything about it, and I don't miss the George guitar parts. A lot of people do, and I know George has a lot of fans, and they want to hear as much of George as they can. I don't know who to blame, if that's the right word, for the reduction in the number of George guitar parts in the new version of Real Love. I tend to think it's not Jeff Lynne, even though he did the mix. I tend to think it's maybe a bit of Paul's influence. We all know from some of the film we've seen over the years, including the anthology, where Paul has talked about what George wanted to play on Hey Jude, how he wanted to trail each line with a little guitar riff. And Paul was like, no, I don't want the guitar part. I'm just singing the verses, one line at a time. We don't need the guitar thing in between. And, of course, George famously said on more than one occasion, if you don't want me to play, I won't play anything at all. And he didn't get to play much on Hey Jude. He does get to play quite a bit on Real Love. But what seems to be missing, and the parts that have been removed, are the parts where George's little guitar riff follows a lyrical line, similar to what was referenced in Paul's comments about Hey Jude. So I may be totally wrong. I'm just pulling this out of the air because I have no idea how this mix came about in terms of the reduction of the presence of George's guitar, but I suspect that Paul might have had something to do with that. Just simply because he's essentially the producer, even though Jeff Lynne officially is. I'm sure Paul had his hand in it, and what sounds good to Paul wasn't necessarily what sounded good to George. And I don't think it's significant enough. I think it is subtle enough that most casual fans, and certainly most new fans, would not even know that it happened. But because we have a lot of fans in our group here on Facebook and throughout the world that know every note of every song. And if they're George fans, they certainly know every note of every guitar lick that George has ever laid down. So, they're missing what they knew to be there. And I guess that I would sum up their concern is, why would you go through, tape that's, 30, well, it started 45 years ago in John's living room or longer. It didn't start the year he died. He recorded this stuff, I think, in 78. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was 1978. So it sat dormant for, all those years. Let's say 15, 16, 17 years. And then, they did a job on it in 95. And then here we are 30 years later. And, we're getting another version of it. But, people that never heard those other you know, the bootlegs of the early stuff or the 1995 stuff, they wouldn't know any different. But those of us who have heard it all many times in many forms over the years, you know, we notice stuff when it's missing. And you know, people are saying, if you had all this stuff, it's like priceless jewels or gold, platinum, whatever you want to say. And why would you get rid of any of it? You know, throw it all in there. We want to hear every last note. And I understand that argument. I do understand the argument, but I think they forewent that argument and decided what would be, you know, commercially viable in 2025. Not that they expected big sales on this. They expected interest in the anthology project. They expected interest in the anthology 4 volume, and they expected interest in this single, which we didn't even know at the time. I mean, this single is not going to chart. It's not going to sell or get airplay that's going to move it into the charts. You know, this is just a low volume special edition for fans. If you're not a diehard fan, you probably don't even know about this record. You know, certainly the average kid on the street will have no idea unless they, for some reason, subscribe to the Beatles channel or Beatles.com, the Beatles store. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know about it. I mean, you're not going to see much advertising regarding this record. But those of us who pay attention to this stuff, you know, we knew. And I knew it was released last Friday, a week ago. And I ordered a couple on the Beatles store. I was surprised. I thought it was a pre-order and it would come out, you know, who knows when, you know, in January or something. And they arrived today. So that's good. I'm happy to have it. I'm sorry that, you know, the Beatles world is not unified in their love for the new mix. You know, I'm kind of okay with it. I definitely support the notion that why would you remove something that you have? Because, you know, you've got George in there, you got Ringo in there, you got Paul in there, and you got John in there. Why would you want to take any of it out? You know, it's like a special thing. But anyway, if it was a matter of artistic license and somebody, whether it was Jeff Lynne or whether it was Paul McCartney or was somebody else in the listening mix, maybe they just made an artistic judgment that the song sounded better without some of those parts in it. They made the same judgment about how to set John's voice, you know, in such a way that we would hear it, you know, the way they wanted us to. So, you know, artistic decisions were made. A lot of people don't agree with them. A lot of people that I know that are familiar with the 2015 mix prefer that over even the 1995 mix. I say 95 because that was mixed in 94 and 95. We didn't get the record until 1996. But I say 95 because, you know, it's easier. But the 2015 mix, I would say, is preferred by fans and has been preferred by fans who have access to it and knowledge of it. And I don't think their mind has changed by this. To the uninitiated that might not even know the 1995 version, I think it's just another Beatles song to them, and it sounds good, and, you know, they're not nitpicky about what you hear and what you don't hear. They wouldn't even know John's voice sounds different. They wouldn't know George's guitar is or isn't present in certain parts of the song. So anyway, I think it's not the greatest thing that ever happened. You know, this is not something to celebrate in a big way. I think the anthology was great, and, you know, the video was improved, the audio was improved, and I was surprised that they put out this updated single, but I'm happy to have it, and I'm happy to have it join the collection. And now in my collection, I have 3 different versions of both of these songs, not counting the bootlegs. So, you know, well, actually, you could say even 4 in the because, you know, the Imagine film that the soundtrack that came out, that was official, and that was early working versions of Real Love for sure. Oh, Real Life. I might even be called Real Life on that album. I'm not sure. Anyway, we now have 3 official commercially viable versions of Free as a Bird and Real Love. And, you know, I'm fine with that. I'm happy with it. It wasn't super expensive. You know, it was $15 plus delivery, of course. I got several of them because you're allowed to buy 4, and I bought 4 because I will probably keep one sealed. I have the one that I've already opened. So, you know, that's 2. I have more than one friend that has asked about it, and you know they're not used to going on the Beatles store, or you know they're not good at finding this stuff, and they just usually come to me and say, "Hey, Charlie, do you have an extra copy?" And I usually say, "Yeah." Sometimes I put them on my Facebook page. I don't allow general selling on my Facebook page. I'm the only one that's allowed to sell on my Facebook page because I know I'm not a scammer, and they know where to find me if there was ever an issue with anything I sold them. So sometimes if I have an extra, or I quote unquote get stuck with an extra, I might put it up on there and say, "Hey, anybody want one of these?" And I don't mark them up. I just sell them at cost. So you know, I'm not trying to gouge anybody, and I'm not trying to scam anybody, but I don't allow selling on the Facebook page, you know, because that's where 100% of the scams come from, is people selling stuff that they don't even have, and you know, and then asking for cash transactions or friends and family transactions. So I don't get involved with any of that, and I don't let anybody sell, and if anybody tries to, I delete it before it gets posted. But anyway, I do sell sometimes, and for the reasons I just stated. So anyway, that is today's video for Free as a Bird. Put the plastic back so you can see it all the way it came in. I took the shrink off of it completely. I just used my own sleeves, and of course the Real Love side. Of course, this was not the configuration in 1995, and you don't get the extra songs. Those were both EPs. And you know, Christmas Time is here again, and all that. You don't get any of that here. You got Free as a Bird on one side and Real Love on the other side, and that's the way the 2019 item that went in the singles collection box. That's the way it went in there. It was exactly the same cover, and it just had the older mixes. And tell you the truth, I'm not even sure if the 2019 single had the 2015 mix on Real Love. I'm not actually sure. I'd have to go back and listen to that. If anybody knows, tell me in the comments. Because, you know, the mix from the One Plus is from 2015. The single that I'm talking about was from 2019. That might very well have snuck the 2015 mix onto that single. Maybe I never even listened to that single. I put it in the box with all the other singles. And I loved how it, you know, fit in there, and I'm sure this one's going to fit in there nice. And then I put Now and Then behind it, and that fit in there nice. I'm not going to get a lot more in there, and of course there's not going to be a lot more. But I don't know. If anybody knows, tell me in the comments whether that's the 2015 mix or the 1996 release date mix. It certainly wouldn't be a 2019 mix, and it certainly wouldn't be a 2025 mix. So that's actually a good question. I hope somebody knows the answer to that. I don't happen to have that with me here, so I can't put it on and check it out. Right, not today anyway. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. I got a bunch of stuff coming up soon. We have the anniversary of a couple of other Beatles products, and we have some new stuff. There's the John Zoetrope War is Over disc, which is somewhere in the mail. There is the Ringo Stop and Smell the Roses liquid vinyl with the liquid inside. And who knows what else Santa Claus will bring this year. We'll have the anniversary of Magical Mystery Tour. A couple of days ago, we had the anniversary of Rubber Soul, and I put up a video with a unique box set of that, which has gotten a lot of views. We're almost 6,000 views on that now, and it's only been up for, I think, 36 hours or something. So anyway, check out the other videos. Please hit the like button, the thumbs up if you like this video. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And hope to see you again. Don't forget to leave your comments, and don't be afraid to share too. If you see a video on there that you like, share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your Facebook page, whatever. They're all out there for you if you want to share them. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Take care.